Lisa's world had fractured the day her mother, Sarah, succumbed to illness. A year had passed, but the gaping hole in Lisa's heart remained, a constant ache amplified by the presence of her stepmother, Clara. Clara had swept into their lives a mere 3 months after Sarah's death, her laughter too loud, her eyes too sharp, and her intentions, Lisa soon discovered, far from kind. Lisa's father, once a warm and loving man, had retreated into a haze of alcohol, his grief a constant companion he nursed with cheap whiskey. He was a shadow of his former self, oblivious or perhaps unwilling to see the subtle ways Clara chipped away at Lisa's spirit. Clara's cruelty was insidious. She burdened Lisa with endless chores, her voice laced with sarcasm and disdain. Lisa's old room, once a sanctuary, was now Clara's walk-in closet, and Lisa was relegated to a small, dusty attic room. Her mother's belongings had vanished, replaced by Clara's gaudy trinkets. One evening, as Lisa scrubbed the kitchen floor, her hands raw and red, Clara announced with a triumphant smirk, "Lisa, I have found you a husband." Lisa's heart plummeted. She was only 18, her dreams of further education still flickering. "A husband," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," Clara said, her eyes gleaming, "a fine, upstanding man." The man arrived a week later. His name was Mr. Johnson, and to Lisa, he looked anything but fine or upstanding. He was a gaunt man with a perpetually downcast gaze. His clothes were worn and patched, and he shuffled when he walked. He barely spoke, and when he did, his voice was a low mumble. Lisa's heart sank. This was her fate, to be married off to this wretched man. Clara and her father seemed pleased, though her father's approval was likely fueled by the bottle of cheap wine Clara had placed in front of him. The wedding was a small, rushed affair. Lisa felt like a pawn in a cruel game, her future dictated by the whims of a woman who clearly despised her. The day after the wedding, Mr. Johnson led Lisa to a dilapidated car parked outside. As they drove, Lisa couldn't help the tears that welled in her eyes. She was leaving her childhood home, her mother's memory, for a life she couldn't even imagine, with a man who seemed as lost and broken as she felt. They drove for what seemed like hours, the landscape changing from familiar streets to winding country roads. Finally, they arrived at a set of imposing gates. Lisa stared in disbelief as the gates swung open, revealing a long, tree-lined driveway leading to a magnificent mansion that seemed to stretch towards the sky. Mr. Johnson parked the old car near the back entrance. As Lisa stepped out, the uniformed chauffeur approached them. "Welcome, madam," he said with a respectful bow. "Mr. Johnson has been expecting you." Lisa looked at Mr. Johnson, her confusion evident. He offered a small, shy smile. "Lisa," he began, his voice clearer and more confident than she had ever heard it, "my name isn't really Mr. Johnson. It's Jonathan Ashton." He took her hand and led her towards the grand entrance. "My grandfather believed in testing character," he explained. "He built his fortune from nothing and always said appearances can be deceiving. When my family insisted I find a wife, I decided to do things my own way. I wanted someone who would see me, not my wealth." Lisa's mind reeled. The worn clothes, the downcast gaze. It had all been an act. Jonathan led her through the opulent halls of the mansion. "Clara and your father. They were quite eager to be rid of you," he said, a hint of sadness in his voice. "I made a modest offer, which they accepted without question." Lisa was speechless, her emotions a whirlwind of shock, disbelief, and a flicker of something akin to hope. She looked at the man beside her, no longer seeing the wretched figure from the wedding, but a kind face with intelligent eyes. "Lisa," Jonathan said, stopping in a lavishly decorated living room, "I know this is overwhelming. I don't expect you to feel anything for me right now. But I promise you, you will never be mistreated again. You will have the life you deserve." As Lisa looked around the grand room, a single tear escaped her eye. It wasn't a tear of sadness, but one of bewildered relief. Her life, which had seemed destined for misery, had taken an unexpected turn. The man her stepmother had deemed wretched was anything but, and perhaps, just perhaps, this strange twist of fate held the promise of a future she could never have imagined.